June 25, 2009, 2:26 p.m. The moment the announcement was made, the world stopped. News alerts flashed across screens in every language. Social media platforms crashed, under the weight of millions trying to confirm what seemed impossible. Michael Jackson, the king of pop, was gone at age 50. What followed was not just mourning, but a global reckoning with loss, legacy, and what his life and death meant to generations who had grown up with his music. This is the story of the aftermath. In our previous episode, we examined the 72 hours before June 25, 2009, documenting the timeline, the medical decisions, and the failures that led to tragedy. We saw how a preventable death occurred despite many people being present, how systems failed, and how warning signs went unheeded. Now we turn to what happened after that moment at Ronald Reagan UCLA Medical Center when Michael Jackson was pronounced dead. How did the world respond? What happened to those involved? And how did his death transform his legacy? The news broke in real time across the world. According to media reports, TMZ was the first to report Jackson's death at approximately 2:44 p.m. Pacific Time, just 18 minutes after he was pronounced dead. Traditional news outlets initially hesitated, seeking confirmation before reporting what seemed unthinkable, but within the hour, every major network had interrupted regular programming. The announcement rippled across the globe in waves as time zones woke to the news. In Asia, morning commuters learned on their way to work. In Europe, evening news programs led with breaking coverage. In the Americas, afternoon routines stopped. The immediate public reaction was shock, followed by grief on a scale rarely seen. According to data from that period, internet traffic surged to unprecedented levels. Google initially suspected a cyber attack because search volumes were so high. Twitter experienced service disruptions as millions posted reactions simultaneously. News websites crashed under the load. Wikipedia's service struggled as editors worked to update Jackson's page, which received millions of views within hours. The technological infrastructure of 2009 was not prepared for global grief expressed instantaneously. Outside the UCLA Medical Center, crowds gathered within hours. According to news footage from that evening, hundreds of fans arrived, many in tears, some refusing to believe the news until they saw evidence themselves. Makeshift memorials appeared, with flowers, candles, and handwritten notes piling up against the hospital walls. Similar scenes played out worldwide. At his star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, at the gates of Neverland Ranch, outside the Apollo Theater in Harlem where he had performed as a child, people congregated to mourn collectively. The immediate investigation began that same evening. According to public records, the Los Angeles Police Department opened a case, recognizing from the circumstances that Jackson's death warranted thorough examination. Dr. Conrad Murray, who had been with Jackson in his final hours, became a focus of inquiry. Police interviewed him extensively on June 25 and 26. His account of what happened, the medications he had administered, and the timeline of events all became subjects of intense scrutiny. The investigation would eventually lead to criminal charges, but that process would take months. The autopsy was performed on June 26, 2009, the day after Jackson's death. According to the Los Angeles County Coroner's Office, the examination took several hours. However, the official cause of death was not released immediately. Toxicology tests were required, and those results would take weeks to process. This delay created a vacuum filled with speculation, rumors, and competing narratives about what had really happened. The public wanted answers, but the medical and legal processes moved at their own necessary pace. Subscribe to this channel to understand how tragedy transforms into legacy, how justice systems respond to high-profile deaths, and how cultural memory is formed in real time. These stories matter because they show us how we process collective loss. Jackson's family released their first statement on June 25, expressing devastation and asking for privacy during their grief. His mother, Katherine Jackson, his father Joe, and his siblings were all present at the hospital when he died. According to later testimony, his children, Prince, Paris, and Blanket, were at the Carrollwood mansion when their father was taken to the hospital. The task of telling them what happened fell to the family. Paris, then 11 years old, would later speak publicly about the moment she learned her father had died, describing it as the worst day of her life. The business implications were immediate and complex. AEG Live, which had invested over $30 million in the Alya Metheten This Is It tour, faced massive financial exposure. According to reports, tickets had been sold for 50 shows, with hundreds of thousands of fans holding tickets for concerts that would never happen. The question of refunds, insurance claims, and financial responsibility became urgent. However, in those first days, the public discussion focused not on money, but on loss and legacy. Celebrity reactions poured in from across the entertainment world. According to news coverage, everyone from Madonna to Paul McCartney to countless other artists who had known or been influenced by Jackson issued statements. Many emphasized his artistic genius. Some spoke of his kindness in private moments. Others acknowledged his troubled final years, while insisting that his musical contributions remained undeniable. The complexity of his legacy, the tension between his extraordinary talent and his controversial life, was present even in these initial tributes. The media coverage was relentless and sometimes problematic. 24-hour news channels devoted nearly constant coverage to Jackson's death, his life, and speculation about what happened. According to journalism reviews from that period, the coverage ranged from respectful biographical retrospectives to sensationalist focus on controversies. Some outlets aired extended discussions of the child molestation allegations from which he had been acquitted in. Others focused exclusively on his musical achievements. The public received a fragmented portrait of a complex figure. Plans for a memorial service began immediately. According to reports, the Jackson family wanted to honor Michael publicly while also maintaining some privacy for their grief. The decision was made to hold a public memorial at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, the same venue where Jackson had held his final rehearsals. The event was scheduled for July 7, 2009, 12 days after his death. The logistics were enormous. According to event organizers, demand for tickets was overwhelming, with over 1.6 million people registering for a lottery to obtain the 17,000 available seats. The memorial service on July 7, 2009, became a global media event. According to viewership data, an estimated 2.5 billion people worldwide watched at least some portion of the broadcast, making it one of the most watched events in television history. The service lasted approximately 2.5 hours. It featured musical performances, celebrity tributes, and emotional speeches from family members. According to those who attended, the atmosphere was both celebratory of Jackson's life and deeply sorrowful about his loss. Several moments from the memorial became iconic. Stevie Wonder performed, his voice breaking with emotion. Usher sang Gone Too Soon while visibly struggling to maintain composure. Smokey Robinson spoke about knowing Jackson since Vessid. Magic Johnson remembered Jackson's humanitarian work. Berry Gordy, who had signed the Jackson 5 to Motown, spoke of discovering Michael's talent when he was just a boy. Each tribute added layers to the public understanding of who Jackson had been beyond the headlines. The most powerful moment came near the end, when Jackson's daughter Paris, then 11 years old, took the microphone. In a brief, tearful statement, she told the world that her father had been the best father anyone could imagine. According to those present, her words broke through the celebrity spectacle and reminded everyone that this global event was, at its core, about a family losing someone they loved. The moment humanized Jackson in a way that years of media coverage had not. Share this video with anyone seeking to understand how we collectively process loss, how justice unfolds in high-profile cases, and how legacies are reshaped after death. These stories teach us about grief, memory, what we value. The investigation into Jackson's death continued throughout the summer and fall of 2009. The toxicology results, released in August, confirmed what insiders had suspected. Acute propofol intoxication was the primary cause of death. According to the coroner's report, other sedatives were also present in Jackson's system. The report classified the death as a homicide, meaning that another person's actions contributed to it. This finding shifted the case from a tragic medical emergency to a potential criminal matter. Dr. Conrad Murray became the focus of both criminal investigation and public attention. According to news coverage, Murray initially cooperated with police, providing statements about his treatment of Jackson. However, as the investigation revealed the extent of propofol use and the circumstances in Jackson's bedroom, Murray's medical decisions came under intense scrutiny. In February 2010, he was charged with involuntary manslaughter. The legal process that would determine his fate was about to begin. The criminal trial of Conrad Murray took place in late 2011, more than 2 years after Jackson's death. According to trial coverage, the prosecution presented evidence about Murray's use of propofol in a home setting, his failure to have proper monitoring equipment, his delay in calling 911, and his incomplete disclosure to paramedics and emergency room doctors. Medical experts testified that Murray's actions represented severe deviations from the standard of care. The defense argued that Jackson may have self-administered a fatal dose of propofol while Murray was out of the room. The jury deliberated and found Murray guilty of involuntary manslaughter. He was sentenced to 4 years in prison, though he served approximately 2 years before release. Parallel to the criminal case, Jackson's family pursued a wrongful death lawsuit against AEG Live. The trial, which took place in 2013, examined whether the concert promoter bore responsibility for hiring Murray and for pressures that may have contributed to Jackson's death. According to trial coverage, the case presented extensive evidence about tour preparations, Jackson's health, and communications between various parties. The jury ultimately found that while AEG had hired Murray, they were not liable for Jackson's death. The verdict was complex, and reactions were mixed, but it represented another step in the legal reckoning with what happened. Meanwhile, Jackson's artistic legacy was being reassessed. The This Is It documentary, compiled from rehearsal footage, was released in October 2009, just 4 months after his death. According to box office reports, the film grossed over $260 million worldwide, becoming the highest-grossing documentary or concert film of all time. Audiences saw Jackson in his final artistic work, and many were struck by his continued talent and dedication, even in difficult circumstances. The film presented a different narrative than some media coverage had suggested, showing an engaged artist committed to his craft. Music sales surged after Jackson's death. According to industry data, in the week following June 25, Jackson's albums occupied 15 positions on Billboard's catalog albums chart. Thriller returned to the top of the charts, nearly 3 decades after its initial release. A new generation discovered or rediscovered his music. Streaming platforms, which were still relatively new in 2009, saw unprecedented demand for Jackson's catalog. His estate, which had been in financial difficulty at the time of his death, began generating hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. The transformation of Jackson's public image was one of the most significant aspects of the aftermath. Before his death, according to polling data and media analysis, public opinion about Jackson was divided. His 2005 acquittal on child molestation charges had been followed by years of financial troubles and eccentric behavior that dominated tabloid coverage. Many people remembered his musical genius, but were uncomfortable with aspects of his life and the allegations he had faced. His death prompted a widespread reconsideration of his legacy, with many people focusing on his artistic contributions and humanitarian work. The humanitarian aspect of Jackson's legacy received renewed attention after his death. According to the Guinness World Records, Jackson had supported 39 charities during his life, more than any other pop star at that time. His work ranged from disaster relief to children's hospitals to AIDS research. The relationship between Jackson and Ryan White, a teenager with AIDS who faced discrimination in the 1980s, was highlighted as an example of Jackson's compassion. Biographers have noted that Jackson often visited sick children in hospitals without publicity, considering it a private responsibility rather than a public relations opportunity. The estate of Michael Jackson, managed by executors John Branca and John McClane, became one of the most valuable in entertainment history. According to financial reports, the estate has generated over $1 billion Since Jackson's death, through music sales, licensing deals, the Cirque du Soleil shows, and other ventures, the estate paid off the substantial debts that existed at Jackson's death and has provided for his mother and children. The financial success has been remarkable, though some critics have questioned certain decisions made by the estate's management. Jackson's children have grown up in the public eye, though efforts were made to give them privacy. Prince Paris and Blanket, who now goes by Biggie, have each found their own paths. Paris has pursued acting and music, speaking openly about her grief and her father's legacy. Prince has worked behind the scenes in entertainment and advocates for his father's charitable work. Biggie has remained largely private. According to family members, all three maintain close relationships with their grandmother Catherine and their extended Jackson family. The cultural impact of Jackson's death extended beyond entertainment into broader discussions about celebrity, media responsibility, and artist welfare. According to industry analysts, the tragedy prompted conversations about tour pressures, medical ethics in entertainment, and the responsibilities of those who profit from artists' work. Some changes were implemented, including better medical oversight requirements for touring artists and increased awareness of prescription drug abuse. Whether these changes were sufficient remains debated. Jackson's influence on subsequent artists became even more apparent after his death. According to music critics and cultural observers, nearly every major pop artist of the past 15 years has cited Jackson as an influence. From Usher to Justin Timberlake, to Bruno Mars, to Beyoncé, the lineage is clear. His emphasis on choreography as integral to pop performance, his understanding of music video as art form, and his ability to craft songs that resonated across cultures all became the template for 21st-century pop stardom. The ongoing debates about Jackson's legacy reflect larger cultural tensions about how we remember complicated figures. Some believe his artistic achievements and humanitarian work should be the focus, that his music brought joy to billions, and his charitable efforts helped countless people. Others argue that the allegations he faced, even though he was acquitted and consistently denied them, must be part of any honest accounting of his life. These discussions have continued, particularly after the 2019 documentary Leaving Neverland reignited controversies, though his estate has vigorously disputed the claims in that film. What remains indisputable is the global impact of Michael Jackson's death. According to cultural historians, few entertainers' deaths have prompted such worldwide grief and reflection. The comparison is often made to Elvis Presley's death in 1977 or John Lennon's in 1980. But Jackson's death occurred in an era of instant global communication, making the shared experience even more immediate and universal. For millions of people across different generations and cultures, June 25, 2009, marks a before and after in their relationship with music and popular culture. The investigation into Jackson's death revealed systemic issues beyond one doctor's decisions. According to medical ethicists who have studied the case, it illustrated problems with celebrity medicine, where normal protocols may be suspended in service of powerful clients. It raised questions about pharmaceutical access and prescription practices. It highlighted the dangers of powerful anesthetics used outside hospital settings. These lessons, painful as they were to learn, have informed medical practice and regulatory discussions in the years since. The financial and business aftermath has been complex. The SZA concerts that never happened would have likely been Jackson's final performances, a planned return after years away from major touring. Instead, his last performances remain those rehearsal sessions, captured on film and released to the world. The tours that other artists have mounted in his honor, the hologram performances, and the continued commercial use of his image and music, all represent attempts to keep his presence alive in entertainment culture. For his family, the aftermath has meant living with loss while managing an extraordinary legacy. Catherine Jackson, who was granted guardianship of Michael's children, has spoken about the difficulty of grief while trying to help her grandchildren process their father's death. Joe Jackson, who passed away in 2018, spent his final years reflecting on his son's life and legacy. Michael's siblings have pursued their own careers while honoring their brother's memory. The family's relationship with Michael's estate has at times been strained, with disagreements about management decisions and financial matters. The cultural memory of Michael Jackson continues to evolve. Each new generation discovers his music through streaming platforms, YouTube videos, and cultural references in contemporary media. His impact on dance, as seen in the continued popularity of the moonwalk and his other signature moves, keeps his physical artistry alive. His influence on music production, particularly his work with Quincy Jones on Off the Wall, Thriller, and Bad, remains a touchstone for understanding how pop music became a sophisticated art form. 15 years after his death, Michael Jackson's legacy is still being written. New biographical accounts continue to emerge, offering different perspectives on his life. Academic studies examine his cultural impact, his artistic innovations, and his complex relationship with fame. Music historians place him in context with other revolutionary artists, and millions of fans around the world simply listen to his music, finding in it the joy, emotion, and artistry that made him legendary. The aftermath of June 25, 2009, taught us about grief, justice, legacy, and memory. It showed us how quickly shock becomes mourning, how legal systems process high-profile deaths, and how public opinion can shift. It demonstrated the power of art to outlast controversy, the way talent can be recognized even amid complexity, and how a global culture can unite in shared loss. Most importantly, it reminded us that behind every celebrity story is a human being, a family grieving, children who lost their father, and a life that, however extraordinary, ended far too soon. Michael Jackson's death was preventable, as medical and legal proceedings established, but his life, with all its achievements and challenges, was singular. The king of pop transformed music, dance, and popular culture in that continue to resonate. His humanitarian work helped thousands. His music brought joy to billions, and his story, including its tragic end, teaches us about talent, pressure, the price of fame, and the complexity of legacy. That is how the world responded, and that is what we remember.